All right, I guess we're started. Hey, welcome. Want to say what's up to everybody. Thank you for taking time to join. I'm here with one of my best friends in the world, Pastor Michael Young. We met about 10 years ago, so at this point, I think we're able to say we go way back.
Absolutely.
I mean, some go back further, but 10 and hopefully many, many more.
Yeah.
But man, I just want to thank you for being my friend. For the investment you've made in my life on many, many fronts. I always look forward to it whenever we go get our omelet over at First Watch.
Absolutely.
I really do, because it meets a lot of needs for me. I sometimes, I think we all can struggle with feelings of being alone, right? Feeling lonely or whatever. Even leadership can kind of be that way. Essentially, you want to be steady. You want to lead people to a good place, and yet maybe there's some things on your mind that you're not sure what to do with them and where to share. And then, it's always nice too when you're walking through similar type things that other people are. And so you're going you're kind of comparing notes and so everything from just being a great friend to sharing your ideas and your journey, from everything from leadership to even just being a husband and a dad and the various seasons in family. I just cherish you, man. I really appreciate you and appreciate you making time to do this. And, next time let's do this at First Watch and we get to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let me do this, because they're gonna throw up some questions on this screen here, and then we're just gonna answer them to the best we can. They said there's a bunch of good ones. I'll be straight up, I don't know what any of them are, so I have no idea.
I like it.
Okay, so if they're bad, they it's somebody else. But all that to say, before we do that, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and share a little bit of your backstory, I'm sure a lot of people that watch know you, but for those that don't.
Man, before I talk about me, I just want to echo some of the things that you expressed in my direction. Bro, I'm grateful to God for you, and I'm grateful that God sent you into my life in the season that he did. He knew exactly what I needed, and a brother and a friend. And man, you have been a blessing not only to me, but you've been a blessing to our ministry, been a blessing to my family. And, I tell people this, you've been a brother to me, right? We favor a little bit, don't we, right? You've been a friend to me, but although we're similar in age, you've also been a mentor to me in a lot of ways. And man, I unapologetically share that. And man, I celebrate you. I celebrate what God is doing in your life, bro, and I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, man. That's kind of you. Thank you.
Man, Michael Young, man, I'm born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, a product of Columbus Public Schools. And
Mifflin?
Yeah, Mifflin High School, man. Go Punchers. Go Punchers, right? Man, graduated from Mifflin.
Wait. It was the Mifflin Punchers?
Yeah, Punchers. Cow Punchers, to be official. Mifflin Cow Punchers.
The Punchers?
Yeah.
Yo, that is the best mascot I've ever heard. The Punchers.
Yeah.
Let's go. Sorry, anyway, keep going.
Graduated from Mifflin, man, got a football scholarship to the University of Akron, which happened to be the Akron Zips, right?
Yeah.
So you go from Cow Punchers to the Zips. And, man, while I was in college, man, playing football, this was pre-cross or pre-Christ. I was doing what unsaved people do.
Working on your testimony.
Yes, sir. Just adding to the story as we went along. And, man, it was in college that, man, one of my best friends in college, who happens to be our executive pastor at this point in time, Pastor Rick Jones, he was one of my best friends in college, and, man, he ended up giving his life to Christ. And up until that point, man, I had people who had witnessed to me. I had people who had shared the gospel with me. It was something that I aspired to do. I wanted to surrender my life to Christ. I just didn't want to do it right now, right? I wanted to wait for life to kind of occur a little bit more. And then I saw God touch Pastor Rick. And I told myself, Pastor Greg, I said, if God could save and change somebody like Pastor
Scoundrel
Rick,
like that.
yeah, if he could take a wretch like that, then I may have a chance at this thing. And, man, right there, 20 years old, man, gave my life to Christ and really just started a journey on a path to purpose that, man, I'm doing now at 45, things I never would have imagined, right? Nobody would ever thought that Michael Young would be a preacher and a pastor. But God had a plan. And what I learned is 1 Corinthians says God takes the foolish things of this world and he uses them to confound the wise. And I always say my season of foolishness is what made me eligible to be used by God.
Well, I want to say, like, you are, for those that aren't familiar with Pastor Mike, you need to go listen to his stuff. Like, it's really, really good. Like, your content, your sermons are profound. They're really, I could literally quote and probably sort of re-preach the stuff I've heard you say. Is just memorable. Like, you do a really good job with it. Excellent orator, communicator, thinker. But man, when I think of you, the first thing I think of is the community impact. You and City of Grace Church have absolutely impacted the city of Columbus. Like, just when the city's going through a hard time, meeting practical needs, you guys aren't just hiding inside the walls of the church. You guys are out there making a difference. You really set a standard for other churches and for all of us. So I really I admire that about you. You're not just up on a stage. You're out helping people walk things through, and your church does the same thing, and it's making our city better. So that's awesome.
Man, we appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
We appreciate it.
All right, so here's what we're going to do, man. We're going to do these questions. They're going to bring them up, and then we can, figure out who's going to go first, who's going to go second. They said kind of keep it moving a little bit because they said there's, a few of them. So we'll just go till they tell us to stop. All right, go ahead and bring the first one up. What is something fresh in your heart that God has been teaching you recently? What is something fresh in your heart that God has been teaching you recently?
I'll tackle that one. For me, and I think we've had some conversations along the way that have kind of helped shape me and my transformation in this space, is I had to come to the realization that I'm a control freak. And what I'm learning to do is some pretty loud amens in the audience there. What I'm learning to do is I'm learning to give away control in certain areas, certain spaces, and certain places in my life. As it relates to ministry, I think back to where our church started. And where our church started, all these roles and positions that we have now, and phenomenal team and tremendous people that we have that are serving in our ministry now, I was filling a significant portion of those roles, right? So as the ministry began to grow, this was kind of like my baby. So, it's kind of like when I had my kids, it was always difficult for me to take my kids to the babysitter the first time. I'm relinquishing my child into somebody else's control. Well, when it came to ministry, I discovered that there were certain things that I was holding on to, and it was very tough for me to let it go because I viewed that as like my baby. So in this season, I'm learning to give control. And what I'm learning is there are people that are more gifted than me in certain areas. There are people who can do the job not only as well as me, but they can actually do it better. So in this season, I'm learning, begrudgingly sometimes, to give away control.
That's a tough one, honestly, I think, because, part of why you've succeeded in various areas of your life is because you took control of something, right? You were proactive and you maybe had a better way to do it or whatever, right? So in a sense, you've been rewarded for taking control of something. And so you start to try to assess the risk of letting that go. And there are certain things I do think as leaders, like you see some people who are really successful doing really good things. And sometimes you'd be surprised how granular that they'll go. Some of the details they'll jump in like that. They don't just go, hey, whatever you guys want to do. Like in a sense, like a lot of times they'll get really into something you wouldn't necessarily know that they would. And so I think kind of knowing as a leader, like how do I assess that risk? And then how do I stay tuned in to how it's going instead of sticking my head in the clouds and my fingers in my ears, closing my eyes and hope it's going good. I got to somehow have a feedback loop. I got to be able to know how it's going so that I can trust. Yeah. Okay. So no, I think I feel you on that. I think, man, for me, God's teaching me right now is how to actually be at peace in some ambiguity and peace with not having an answer to stuff. So usually I like answers. Again, as a teacher, you teach, you have the answer. You want to stand up and go, okay, now here it is. I've cracked the code. It's step 1, step 2, step 3, and and make sure you have an answer. And people ask me questions, I feel like I need to have an answer. I feel like I need to know an answer. In fact, when I started pastoring and preaching, one of my visceral fears was somebody was going to ask me a Bible question and I didn't have the answer. And I didn't know I was going to look stupid, And so actually, ironically, the more I've really, really become a better and better student of the Bible, the more I realize that things maybe that were even given to me as dogmatic, open and shut, like this is right, you can look and go, I don't know. Like that could be interpreted that way. Absolutely. They could interpret it that way. That's just as plausible that it could be this. And again, my nature is I all my life felt like I needed to get sure about it. I needed to get like, nope, this is it. And then I'm going to argue for it. And I find myself, I feel like the Lord's working in my heart to come to peace with like, I don't know. It could be that. It could be this. I think it's probably this. Yeah. But I don't know that I know, I don't know that I feel like, I've felt a need over time, and I've actually had people almost kind of pressure you at times, like you need to take a hard stand on that. Yeah. And it's like, well, you have a hard stand on it because you don't really understand it very well.
Well, and I think in some instances, I think it is incredibly arrogant of us to think that we're supposed to have all the answers, right? And I think where I've become relatively comfortable is I don't always have to wear the mask and cape, right? Yes, people may look at you as a hero, but you're as much human as you are a hero. In the same way that the congregation lives in and maybe wrestles with their humanity, right? I think us as leaders, we do the same. And I think one of the beauties that I come to appreciate about you is I think you find a great balance. And man, you're just Greg Ford that happens to be Pastor Greg Ford. And, it's relatable, it's captivating, and I think it's what has really been some of the secret sauce to the success of your ministry in One Church.
I appreciate you saying that. I think with the Bible, right, we so badly want to get it right. We really want to get it right. And I think, again, to me, I had that deep need for that. And I think there's some of it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to heaven, and Paul's going to be like, bro, that's not what I meant, dude. That's not what I meant.
That's not the interpretation.
Well, I mean, even, I was talking to the church the other day at a 1 Corinthians 5, He's like, hey, you guys misunderstood my last letter. Yeah. In chapter 5, he's like, I wrote you a letter before, which we don't have that letter. I wish we did. Yeah. But he's like, you totally misinterpreted, because he was talking to them about sin. And he was like, you guys thought I was talking about the world. I was talking about you guys. Yeah. And internally, like what kind of environment you're supposed to have and what you do when people just run around and they're bragging about sin and they're not accountable. And they're not humble, and they're getting defensive, and now they become predator. He's like, I was talking about you guys. You guys misunderstood my letter, thought I was talking about everybody out there. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm thinking like, well, how much of it am I messing up on his other letter,
I think about Jesus and his dialogue with his disciples, right? This is his inner circle. These are his guys who he's living with, he's doing ministry with. He's spending literally almost 24/7 with them. Right? And he's teaching the multitudes, and then they're coming back asking questions, and basically Jesus is like, fellas, y'all missed it.
He's like, Philip, have you been with me all this time?
Bro,
and
you still 3.5 years, and bro, you still haven't caught the lesson, man. So.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. All right, let's keep it rolling. What we got next? How do you lead from a supporting role? How do you lead from a supporting role? So if I understand the question right, you're saying to someone who's in a supporting role, and so maybe you've got, somebody you're reporting to, or you're not the point leader or the leader, lead pastor or whatever. How do you lead? Is that the question? Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can go first.
I can tackle it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, man, it's a book I read one time titled "Hold My Ladder," and it really paints the picture in this leadership book of somebody who's scaling a tall ladder. And anytime somebody scales a tall ladder, you need somebody who's going to be just as faithful to holding the ladder, right? The person climbing the ladder can't be successful at what it is that they're trying to accomplish unless they're confident that somebody is down there holding the ladder. And I think sometimes as a lead pastor, as somebody who may lead a department, sometimes because you're the person that's out front, you're viewed as the person that's climbing the ladder. Right, but the reality is we know our success isn't tied just to how high we can scale the ladder. It's tied to who's actually holding the ladder or the teams that are holding the ladder for us so we can do what it is that God has created and called us to do. People would tell you at the City of Grace, I think language is very important. You know, people will say, this is your church, or people will say, you're doing this. And they'll tell you, I correct them every time. No, this is not my church. This is our church, right? This is not me doing this. This is us doing this. Because what I'm very, very cognizant of is the people holding the ladder are just as important as myself or somebody else climbing the ladder.
I read an article a while ago. I wish I could remember who wrote it, but it's been a while since I read it. But basically, it was talking about high-performance teams, and it was saying that on high-performance teams, one of the consistent characteristics is peer accountability. So a lot of times people think that teams function really well because the boss comes in and, you know, holds everyone accountable. In fact, often people won't hold each other accountable because they're waiting on the boss to come in and say it. It's like, you know, he said on high-performance teams, it's pure accountability. You think about like a football team, right? Like the coach goes in, screams himself mad, nobody cares. If you really want change, have a players-only meeting. Yeah. Those players-only meetings often are the turning point in the whole season. Yeah. Now, this is a guy can't even put you in the game, take you out, technically doesn't have any more authority than you do, but when they close the doors and the players start talking to one another and they go, I'm not putting up with that. Yeah. And I'm your teammate, right? So I think like within, you know, in a supporting role, set a standard. You know, be a person of high standards, like set an example, hold one another accountable, do it in love. You don't need to be, you know, the biggest jerk in the room and whatever. Like, I think you can go in and, you know, call out the strength in that person and, you know, let them know, like, I see more in you. I think you're selling yourself short. I think you're selling us short. Like, so I think like sitting around going, well, if I had more authority, I'd be a better leader. If I had a more lofty title, I'd be a better, no, man, like, right where you're at, set that standard, hold people accountable, you know, by the way that I mean, again, Paul says to Timothy, man, don't let anybody look down on you for being young, yeah. You know, but set an example for other people. Yeah. So I think you probably have more, well, the other thing too is, again, when you do set a high standard and you do, you know, you do your job really well, your influence grows. Because that's at the end of the day, right? Like supporting role, whatever the org chart looks like, leadership is influence, right? I think John Maxwell, right? Okay, it's influence. So how do I gain influence? Be really good at your job. Yeah. Be a person of your word. You know, keep your cool, keep your word. You know, do these things with character, man. Be somebody people can depend on. And then when you speak up, everybody's all ears. Yeah,
yeah. I think you used the word and you attached another word to it that I think is spot on. I think it's important for us to understand that accountability is a love language. Mm. If I truly care about Greg, I'm going to hold Greg accountable to what Greg is capable of doing, right? Don't call me your friend and you don't hold me accountable for what Michael Young is possibly able to do, right? So I think accountability is a love language. If I see somebody falling short of what their potential is, what their promise is, then it is my job if I say that I love you, if I say that I'm in covenant relationship with you, is to hold you accountable for who you are.
It's a gigantic compliment because what you're doing is saying, like, you wouldn't come to me if you really didn't believe I could do better. Oh, yeah. You wouldn't, because that would be inhumane to just come and call me into doing something that I'm incapable of doing. Oh, yeah. So by going and holding someone accountable, or you know, you're essentially saying, like, I think you're right. You know, the way you're conducting yourself is here, but I think you're way up here. Absolutely. I think that's where you belong. Yep. And so it's actually a huge compliment. Sometimes hard to hear. Doesn't always feel like compliment. Not everybody's great at delivering it. You know, not everybody's the best communicator. But I think like that sort of accountability, that's somebody telling you, they're giving you a compliment. They think you could be great and you're just being good.
Man, I'll never forget. I mean, I worked in corporate America for 18 years. And man, my first VP that I had, this was my boss's boss. I had a pivotal conversation with him that really just shifted my paradigm and shifted my performance. I was walking past his office one day, and he yelled from his desk. He said, "Michael, come here." And I was like, well, this is my boss's boss. So this is
It's
either going to
real
be real good, right? Or it's going to be real bad, right? So I came in his office and said, hey, what's going on, Nelson? He said, have a seat. Now, he had 2 seats in front of his desk, and he had a seat on the side of his desk. I went to reach for one of the seats in front of his desk. He said, no, I want you to sit right here, right? He wanted to be up close and personal. I said, what's going on? He said, Michael, I got to be honest with you. He said, you're not doing good enough. And that caught me off guard because my performance in comparison to my peers, it was actually pretty good. I was like near at the top of all of our metrics. I was getting great feedback from my customer base. So I was like, it kind of took me back. He said, you didn't hear me. I didn't say you weren't doing good. I said, you're not doing good enough. I said, what do you mean, Nelson? He said, well, if I compare you to your peers, you're doing good. If I look at just what your customers say to you, you're doing good. But when I compare you to the potential that you've revealed, you're not doing good enough. And what I will never do is I'll never compare you to your peers, and I'll never just listen to what your customers say. I'm always going to hold you accountable to the potential I see in you. Dude, it shifted my paradigm because he was holding me accountable, not just for my responsibilities, but for my ability. And he called me to a higher place. And man, 20-something years later, I look back and I recognized that was a love language that was being expressed to me.
Wow. He saw what you were capable of, right? If you do something great one time, it just means you have potential. But if you do it great over and over and over again, then you become great.
Yes, sir.
And so he's going, hey, don't just do it every once in a while. Do that standard all the time and become great. Like he saw you could do it.
Yes, sir.
That's life-changing stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep rolling. What is your greatest leadership failure? Come on, man. What kind of question? You
I'll let
guys
Pastor
trying
Greg
to
take that one first.
Yeah, okay. Leadership failure. Goodness, man. My greatest failure is I care too much. I love too hard. I work too hard. No. Man. Greatest leadership failure. I think, when you're leading people, right? We're not one church is people. Any organization I've ever been leading was people, and so I think probably the biggest failures are just mishandling people in some way. Like I think probably I had a tendency, especially early on, to overpromise and underdeliver on relationships. So like I would see potential in somebody, or I tend to be pretty optimistic by nature. So I'd be like, hey, it's going to be like this and this, and we'll do this. And so I was kind of like going on record with somebody and painting a picture of it, vision of the future. And in my mind, I'm thinking I was sincere, but I think with people over time, I would ultimately say things that we didn't end up doing, or maybe I would have to go back and change it because it didn't play out as clean as I thought. And so then people end up getting very hurt because, man, but you told me that, 2 years ago, you said it was going to be this. And I'm like, yeah, 2 years ago, that's what I thought. And now it's changed. I wish I would have done a better job of, creating enough clarity for us to move ahead without making promises or saying things. Even if I didn't say, I promise you this, people you say stuff, they trust you. They trust you. So, and again, there were things in my immaturity, sincere immaturity, but I thought I'd be able to do it, or I thought it was going to work out that way. That's how I was optimistic about it, and then it didn't. And so then you end up with people feeling very hurt. Yeah. And so, we say on our team, it's okay to disappoint people. It's not okay to hurt people. And sometimes it's hurtful to be disappointed. Sometimes being disappointed hurts. I can't think back on anything that I set out to hurt somebody. Like I don't go out, attacking, yeah. But I think in some of my overpromise, underdeliver, I hurt people. Yeah. And so that's no good.
I got a lot of leadership failures, so I could really just pick from a few here. I'll say one professionally and then one personally. Professionally, lead pastor as a leader of a ministry. I think one of my weaknesses that has at times been a failure is I'm so focused on the next that I don't appreciate the now. Right? I'm so focused on, okay, we hit this marker, now let's go get this marker, that it robbed me, and I think it robbed the people who were in that moment with me. Because, you know, you hit a marker, you've been working towards something, it's really time to celebrate what we've all just collectively accomplished and experienced. But for me, I'm so ready to turn the page and get to that next marker that, again, I rob myself and I rob other people of this moment of celebration. So I think, you know, the older you get, I think you learn to appreciate moments more. Not just the accomplishment of the moment, but also just the relational element of that particular moment. On a personal level, I have 3 kids. My oldest child is 20. My second oldest child is 18, and then my youngest child is 11. And, you're like this, man, well, how in the world did you get that big gap between your second child and your third child? Well, part of it is because of failure. I recognized that I missed significant moments and significant seasons in my older two's life, pursuing what I said God was calling me to do. And it was almost like my youngest child was my opportunity for redemption, right? I never consider myself to be a bad dad, and I don't think that would be their testimony, but I just know I missed out on moments and I missed out on opportunities that, anyone who's a parent, you recognize you never get those moments and those seasons and those opportunities back. So what I missed out on with Kaylee and what I missed out on with Deuce, now I'm doing it all with Micah, right? I'm an AAU coach, right? Like, if you would have asked me to do that 10 years ago, no, I'm pursuing what God is calling me to do. Well, now I'm kind of living in a redemption season with my youngest child, that everything I missed out on with these 2 older ones, pursuing what I felt like, I kind of put it under the umbrella of God's call on my life. I'm getting the opportunity to experience that now.
That's cool. That's very cool. What do you hope your legacy is? Wow. I'll go. This is going to sound a little weird probably to start, but I don't really have a strong need for everybody to remember me like forever. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's Deuteronomy 34. It's like Moses talks about when Moses died. I shouldn't have said that out loud because now it probably isn't, but I think it's Deuteronomy 34. Moses dies and they mourned and grieved for 30 days. And then the next verse says, and then Joshua.
Turn the page.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, certainly I want to make an impact, no question. I want to leave some things in the world and in the lives of people. But I don't have this strong need like 100 years from now, everybody's still talking about me or knowing my name or whatever. I want to, if that happens, that's fine. But I don't, that's not like a goal. Like, I don't really think about that. I think what I'm trying to do, to the best of my ability, is be as healthy of a human being, because I think healthy people do more right on accident than unhealthy people do on purpose. So if you sit around and you're unhealthy, and you read all these leadership books and all this, okay, you still end up accidentally, because you're not healthy, kind of contaminating the environment, even if you got a bunch of skills. And I think actually probably do lots more damage, to be honest. So to me, like, I want to be a healthy guy, a healthy heart, soul, mind, strength, and neighbor relationships. And in some way, and this is going to sound a little grandiose, I don't mean for it to, but in some way, be as close to Jesus as I can, in that, like, when people read about the life of Jesus, they're like, well, yeah, that's kind of like him. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm not Jesus, so I'm please don't go out and say, hey, Greg and Jesus, Greg says he's kind of like Jesus, but no, honestly, like, the spirit that raised Christ from the dead is in us as he's transforming and renewing my mind and building our character. Like, I want my daughter, my sons, my wife, the people that I work with closely, to see a reflection of Jesus in some way. And hopefully that now takes these things off of the page and now you see it, right? So like a principle needs a personality. It needs to be personified. So you read these principles and you read this Sermon on the Mount and you read these teachings, okay? What does that look like in a person's life? I want to do that better and better all the time. Yeah. And hopefully, give somebody something that after I'm dead and gone and the context of the world changes, that they can do that same thing in the world at the time they live. But in terms of like legacy and all this, like, you
don't need a statue.
Nah, I don't need anybody to remember my name. Like, for what? Like, it doesn't matter. I don't think that's that important.
Yeah. Man, I'm reminded it's Matthew chapter number 16, a very popular or familiar portion of Scripture, where Jesus came to his disciples and he asked a question. He said, "Who do men say that I am?" Right? And he said, "Some say that you're Elijah, and some say that you're John the Baptist." And they began to attach all these titles to who Jesus was. And then Jesus asked a second question. He said, "Who do you say that I am?" I think similar to yourself, what's important to me is not who do men say that I am, right? It's not the crowd, because the crowd is fickle. At one moment they'll be saying Hosanna, and the next minute they'll be saying crucify him. My real desire is who do the people who know me best say that I am, right? Who does the city of Grace say that I am? Who does my kids say that I am, right? Who do my true friends say that I am? And I'm much more interested in impacting them, right, and leaving a legacy with them than, the multitudes. There's another verse in the book of Acts that the Bible said David served his generation. And what we talked about in prayer this morning as a church is I recognize there's only a window of time that God gives all of us, right? The Bible said, Hebrews chapter number 9, it's appointed to every man to die once. All of us got an appointment. Right, we can't miss that appointment. You can miss a barbershop appointment. You can miss a nail appointment. You can miss a dentist appointment. None of us are missing that appointment. So all of us have just been given a span of time. And what I want to do with my time is I want to maximize the moment, or I want to maximize the time, right? And my hope is that the people who are closest to me would have favorable things to say about me. And that it could be said about me, as it was said about David, that he served his generation. Not that his generation served him, but that he served his generation.
That's good. I want to look this up. I want to make sure I got this right, because I'm nervous about Deuteronomy. Okay. Deuteronomy 34. There's one last thought with it. So it says, Deuteronomy 34:7, Moses was 120 years old when he died. Now look at this. It said, yet his eyesight was clear and he was as strong as ever. My. So I think that I want to end with my eyesight clear, my vision clear, and strong as ever, right? I want to end well. I want whatever that means for me. I want to end well. Like I don't want to be going out, weak. I don't want to be going out the wrong way. I want to go out with a clear eyes, clear heart, clear eyesight, and strong as ever.
I love that.
Yeah.
You said something associated with that scripture, essentially how when Moses died, they turned the page. And man, I remember a gentleman told me that he learned a very humbling lesson at a very young age. He said one of his teachers posed a question to him. Well, it was really to their entire classroom. He said, how many people can name both of your grandparents? And most of the kids' hands went up. How many people can name all four of your great-grandparents? Less hands went up. How many of you can name all 8 of your great-great-grandparents. He said literally no hands went up. He said, Mike, think about that. He said in 2 generations, nobody's going to remember you, right? So our impact can't be for the praise of people or for the statue moment, right? Like we're making deposits that are eternal, right? And ultimately God is going to reward us for what it is that we do.
I think it's profound, dude. I think it's counterintuitive because at first you think, okay, in 2 generations, nobody's going to know who you are. You would think that that could impact you in the wrong way, that you could think then my life's insignificant. What's the point? I don't think so. I think it's kind of freeing. Like, I think most people walk around feeling like this weight of like, my life's not important enough. It's not that, it's like, man, serve your time well, man. Run your leg of the journey well. And it's okay. Not everybody's, point people to Jesus, man. They're going to remember him. They don't need to remember. Like, I find it freeing. I think I can see how somebody might go, maybe think it's making them less, their life somehow less of an impact or less significant. I don't see it that way. I find it freeing personally. Okay, let's go to the next one. How do you handle making a decision might be unpopular, but is ultimately the right thing to do?
I'm going to take this one.
Thank you.
And I may be answering for the both of us. I can't remember what I was at One Church for. It was an evening service of some sort. And you and I were standing in the back of this sanctuary. And you said, you know what, Mike, man, one of my mentors shared something with me that has helped me make some very significant decisions as it relates to this church and this ministry. You said that your mentor told you that when God called Greg Ford, his expectation of Greg Ford is that he was not going to make decisions that were best for Greg, but he was going to make decisions that were best for One Church. Right? Think about the weight of that decision-making process. There are some decisions that may not necessarily be best for you. When I say best for you, best for personal relationships, put you in some difficult spaces or conversations. And although it may not be best for you, it may be best for One Church. Man, you shared that with me, and it liberated me to really be free to make whatever decisions I thought was best, led by God, and there's safety in the multitude of counselors, right? Like seeking wise counsel as well, but learning to make decisions that were best for the ministry and not best for me, right? Making decisions that were best for the ministry and not best for me. As a result, to be completely frank, I lost some relationships, making decisions that were best for the ministry and not best for me. Right? What would have been best for me is to keep this long-term relationship. But what was best for ministry was to make a decision, right, for the ministry to prosper, for the ministry to succeed, that may have created some sort of angst or offense or frustration in this person. So I lost the relationship, but the ministry prospered as a result of it. So Pastor Greg Ford, I don't know if you ever met him or not, but he gave me some really good advice one time.
Well, I think it's, I appreciate you saying that. I think, the key is thinking it all the way through, because as a leader, there might be times, you have to ultimately do something that may appear like you're making a selfish decision in terms of like you're protecting yourself or what, whatever it might be, right? You're doing something that in some way is preserving yourself, right? And you got to kind of dig in. I think you have to dig into your motive to go, am I doing this being selfish? Or am I doing this because ultimately I've got to protect myself so I can serve this church well? You know what I'm saying? Like you got to kind of get into like I remember we had a guy that he was a coach, a football coach, and he was going to our church, and he gave me some advice one time, and he was like, Greg, he's like, he goes, it's kind of weird because you got to kind of, from a sports analogy, you got to think of yourself as kind of a coach and a quarterback. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, it's not like you just calling plays, like you're throwing passes, like you're in there doing stuff. He's like, but a lot of times what a coach will do is might kind of protect the quarterback, like, hey, wear this color jersey and don't be hitting this guy on Thursday because we need Stroud in the game. You know, we can't have him getting hurt on Thursday or whatever. So he goes, but the coach is doing that and creating that protection, not because he's trying to make the quarterback, you know, some super special, you know, elite, whatever. He's trying to protect the team by protecting the quarterback.
That's good.
And if we're all in trouble if we go in there and this guy isn't healthy. He's not in a good spot. So in a sense, he's like, you know, you got to kind of have the discipline to step outside of yourself and look at yourself and make decisions in your life that is allowing you to be a healthy guy so that you can lead well. And that might, to some, it might appear like you're making a selfish decision. You just got to know, again, why am I doing this? And is it really a heart to serve God and serve people? Or am I just doing this because I like the perks? Okay, so that was super helpful for me working my way through that because, again, a leader on the front lines, you're like, no, I'll take the bullets, you know, boom, 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 boom. And then it's like, well, now you're down, you know. I think with this man, too, like this question about leading something that's unpopular, you know, but it's ultimately the right thing to do. For me, the courage comes when I get clear. So once I'm clear, it's like, no, this is the right thing to do. I think to me, I'll you know, delay sometimes if I don't feel clear. Like if for some reason there's not alignment with my head, my heart, and my gut, and there's some misalignment there. Once I get clear and I'm like, and I really feel strongly that I've checked all these boxes, I've thought this all the way through, I've listened to good counsel, and this is the right thing to do. Now, courage pops out. Like, it's like, well, here we go. We're taking this hill. But I think if I haven't thought it all the way through, you know, or there's still some internal conflict, you know, then I'll wait. I'll sit on it. And then that upsets people sometimes. They're like, oh, you need to take a stand on that. Yeah. A lot of times people want me to speak up right away on some hot topic and hot takes and whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm still thinking it through. I'm still working my way through it. Like, I got to get clear before I get courageous.
You know, when I look at this question, I think it depends on what season you're in as well. And what I mean by that is we referenced Maxwell earlier. Well, Maxwell, he talks about a leader's change in his pocket, right? Each leader has a certain amount of change in their pocket. And every good decision a leader makes, it adds change to their pocket. And every bad decision a leader makes, it takes away change from their pocket. So I think the decisions and the choices that you have made leading up to this particular decision that you need to make is going to strongly influence how this decision is received, right? If I've made good decision on top of good decision on top of good decision, I'm working with a nice amount of change.
Yeah.
So even if this decision doesn't go right,
right,
I still got change in my pocket, right? Like I've built up equity with the people who we're doing ministry with to where they're not going to hold one bad decision against you. And what I've learned is if I make a bad decision today, we can correct it tomorrow, right? Yeah. Like I'm not afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, man, if we disagree on what the right way to do it is, but we choose to go with your idea, I want to be wrong at the end of the day because we chose to go with your idea and not my idea, right? I'm not saying, well, since we didn't do it my way, I want the idea to fail so I can say I told you so. No, I want to be wrong now, right? And then I ask for the same grace, right? If my way doesn't work out, right, don't kill me for it. We'll just alter the course and make a better decision the next day.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's where, too, like when you're walking through these things that are unpopular and whatever, as a leader, I think it's why communication is really important, how you communicate. So like I think back on the pandemic and, you know, there were just so many catch-22s everywhere, right? So even something like masks, right? Like we had people in our church that, you know, were super upset that we asked people to wear masks. And then we had other people that were upset we didn't sew them on everyone's face. and so we were trying, you know, essentially, you know, to navigate and walk that through. And I would kind of talk about it like on the front of a message. You know, I'd be like, hey guys, you know, I missed the pandemic day in college when they taught how to lead through these things. So give me some grace, you know, in what I'm doing. And obviously like it's a crazy time in the world and we can either be split over masks or we can refuse to be divided by them. So either, we're here at this time in the world, we're asking everyone to wear them. All right. So if you don't want to wear it, okay, then you can watch on TV. We're not saying don't let the door hit you on the way. That's not the spirit. That's not our heart. But this is what we're walking through. It's something we've never walked through before. So I might be wrong. But you know what? If I'm wrong and you give me grace, we can keep being friends. So would you, so I think like some of these things that are unpopular, don't act like they're not happening. Let's talk it through and try to have try to communicate in such a way that folks will give grace. And then you got a hidden advantage. Your church is called City of Grace. So everybody gets rude. You just say, come on now, you know where you're at. You're in the City of Grace.
Well, and our motto is no perfect people allowed.
No perfect people allowed. So apparently you don't get anything wrong. You get out. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's keep rolling. What do we got? When can we wrap up this podcast? I think that answer's now.
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, this has been a great conversation, dude. I've got a lot of takeaways personally, man. I appreciate you being so generous with yourself. We tend to think you say somebody's generous, it usually means they give their stuff. But I think the ultimate generosity is giving self. Thank you for sharing your experiences, your wisdom with us, man. It's an awesome thing, man.
It's been an honor. It's been a privilege, a pleasure, man. We're going to do it again sometime.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again. All right, wrapping up. God bless.
All right, family.